The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "How should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita?" Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, "O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity and no purity, no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas. Why dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times, by means of Prajnaparamita, fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One rose from that samadhi, praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, "Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice." The Blessed One has said to noble Shariputra, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Yata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha papa gonju sunji gai dempe doji she lobo doji mebo doji shewo doji jagi baji medum beju donji she din gorye zo ngiri don jaji jo jiwa da me do nu beijin dan de wa da Nom ba yun jin bun zun zun jo ji ja shi li jan ne na le yo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure one. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Hedam Guru Ratna Mandalagam Niradayami. Chadan Jadi Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Yasuji Nagi Chenye Jibe Zonam Drola Benji Zanye Rubar Yodan Jadi Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Yasuji Nagi Chenye Jibe Zonam Drola Benji Zanye Rubayo Yodan Jadi Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Yasuji Nagi Chenye Jibe Zonam Drola Benji Zanye Rubayo.
What am I to London to do my London? Atisha London. Atisha what did Atisha Ludu said no Tome Yasu Naleta Keba Sama and the Saji Song down with the Samal Concabaris and the Compel Pene. Other purpose of good division in London, Sumaris London. Can't you that you and the Samak doing that one do with the London Sumaris, what the Naso London do that is that London, the Bamu you are near Mang, the you are Kaju, Saja, Gulu, what the Jatan to Suga and the Bayajire, and then also what the German chain, the Bajishu, the LamRim Chenmo, what to do this, Marva.
So today we will be looking at the root text in the beginning of what the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment comments on. This text was written by Lord Atisha, who was an Indian master who then came to Tibet to bring the teachings. And the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment was a teaching that he gave to the Tibetans, which included all of the teachings that were given and contained in the Kangjur, which is the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, and the Tanjur and the authentic Indian commentaries. So this text summarizes all of the Buddhist paths taught by Lord Buddha, and then those commentaries by such masters as Nagarjuna and Master Sangha from those lineages. So Atisha was able to combine all of these instructions into a very concise manual, and then many commentaries have been written on Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. Nyingma, Sakya, Kaju, and then Galupa commentaries. And even some Chinese commentaries as well have been written, perhaps. And when we look to His Holiness the Dalai Lama and what he considers the greatest commentary to be, we come to the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsong-kha-pa. This is the most extensive explanation of this teaching that Lord Atisha gave.
Watangatude Pali Ketul Yabitine, Kanju Potujayo or Smarva, Potujaji, Pali Dan Sanskrit Ketul Yabitine, Tenju Potunijat Josumarva. What the Pali Dan Sanskrit Yavat Burki to June, Pearl Candet, what done, but the Sudes Marva.
The conjure Pali Dan Sanjake, Pali Kuna. Nikayamba. And conjure Pali Dan Sanjake? Nikayamba. Then Tanjure Nicha Ju Sum. Okay.
What that Burki to Jujab, there is.
So the way that the teachings emerged in Tibet is that the Indian tradition existed in the languages of the Pali and the Sanskrit language. And 100 of Lord Buddha's texts, the actual pronouncements of Lord Buddha, which we call the Kangjur, were brought to Tibet and translated into Tibetan from the original Pali and Sanskrit. So we have those 100 texts here. And then the authentic Indian commentaries, the Tanjur, were translated also from Pali and Sanskrit, and those contain 213 volumes, of which we have as well. So making for a total of 313, 100 of Lord Buddha's actual pronouncements, and then the 213 commentaries.
라르게 다 된다 또 대인서 중원된도 주주 제부송도 셔버샤스 못들래 신인도로와데 라르게 된다 그거 두두진 좀 말বে 중원된도 주주 제부송도 셔버샤스 제부 중원에 나지르반 딩글 나지르바 제부 집이 나지르바 송도 어디서 말বে 어디 제부 중원 나지르바데 네 하다메 대전 도약에 내가 여봐 이나 and Latame doesn't to be Dendulan, John Marie Jubung to Jinkato Jeduson, then the Somatun de Balashana Jibaina, Dendulan is, military Halichigres, Sanji Waterson Samarva. That Tabat to Agan de Vaina, Tonila Mishineta Laton. Then a shooting lover. What to Sonia Legina, didn't Papi, Deva, and then the Kunyu Papi Deva, Devani Pombi, Tabatu to Grace, Marba. Then Sanji go to Devayina, Sanji go to Devayina, then Kamal Lachila, Murin Pavale, and then Hiji Zawa, Hiji Chamber Sawaris, then Chanchu Saint Joe. 타지 바르듯이 봐 손라 때네 안 사지고 도레스 어디 까말라실라게 네 부드생 로운 자마가 사지고 모두 비주들라 또 해지레스 해지 자와 샤주 생조 된 타지 바르듯이 봐 다시도 두신 자마가 도스니 알레제이나 안 사지 도레스 어디 손이 있어 어디 그걸 나는 걸 뒤진 자마가
So in the first beginning of the Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, we find a summary verse which summarizes all of the material that we're speaking of, summarizes the entire contents. And it does so in 2 sentences. It states, understand that there are persons of 3 capacities, small, middling, and great. I shall write clearly identifying their characteristics. So this stanza encompasses or contains all of the teachings that are about to be given. So when we begin with the small capacity, this is referring to the pathways for beings of small capacity. These are pathways which lead to the higher realms of existence, to the gods and humans realms. So here, these pathways are practices as follows: engaging in ethical behavior, which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, going for refuge in the 3 jewels of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And if one engages in a negativity, acknowledging his or her downfall. So if one desires to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence, one engages in this pathway of refuge, ethical behavior, and acknowledgement of downfall, and then is able to achieve rebirth in the higher realms of the gods and humans. So this is what is being referred to as small capacity. The next is medium capacity, is referring to the pathways that are shared in common with beings of medium capacity. And these are for beings who desire freedom from cyclic existence altogether for themselves alone. So here we find the presentation then of the 4 Noble Truths. The Buddha stated that this is the superior truth of suffering, this is the superior truth of origin, this is the superior truth of cessation, and this is the superior truth of path. And here, by engaging in practices which are pathways, which are ethics, ethical behavior, and then coming to a union of calm abiding and special insight, which utilizes as its object of observation emptiness, this practitioner, through this practice of these 3 higher trainings, is able to abandon those first 2 noble truths, the truth of suffering and origin, and be able to achieve a state of liberation. So this is what is meant by medium capacity. And then for those beings who desire not just liberation, but complete Buddhahood, the teachings for the pathways for beings of great capacity were presented. And here we can refer to Kamalashila's text, the Stages of Meditation, where he states that at the root of this practice we find great compassion. Because great compassion is the cause of bodhicitta, and this is the method to perfection, or to the other side. So Kamalashila states this, and here is speaking of the necessity of this great compassion in the mind that aspires to enlightenment, that then becomes united with these higher trainings and allows one then to, by uniting method and wisdom, achieve complete Buddhahood. Diksa.
Jeta Kamalashi Lago, the Nijit teaching long Zawais, Zawai, do the Jen, Jashamang, do the Jen Lea, Tea Zaw Nijidus, and Niji Chenmo teaching long Zawais. Imi Juse Karasana, and Teba Jimbi, Toda Basum Kechewa, Imbejer, Toma Kechewa, Samen Tabo, Wadu Kechewa, Chuli Tabo, Tama Kechewa, Remember Tabo Yeta, and the Nijit, Teba Jimbi long Zawais. What is one matter?
The Tama? Sokun Chu Tama?
Not to turn to Lotul Chajava in Del Chajava in Tombo, Samugo, Sabu. Tombo Kisho, Sabu Marabe.
And Chu.
Sabu, Yenaya, Pado, Chutna Lutus Man Jetuma.
That's so.
Pado Kisho, Chulu Tama Kisho and Rebum Hebas. Tama Kechoa, and the Sanjeva dea, and the Shanchu Sen. Hiji Latene Sanjevaris, Devon Pipa. What things are my
So in the Kamalashila's medium, I'm sorry, stages of meditation, we find this quote that at the root of the Mahayana is great compassion. And we find a similar quote in Lord Maitreya's Sublime Continuum, where it states that the root of the perfection vehicle, or the great vehicle, is compassion. So we find the common quote being made by Kamalashila and Lord Maitreya. And it stated that because compassion is important in the beginning, the middle, and the end. And here, compassion is compared in the beginning to a seed, which starts the process. And compassion then in the middle, which drives the practitioner, is important, like the water that waters this seed. So while the practitioner is traversing the stages after compassion, the compassion is like the water that allows the practice to keep moving forward, and then is the resultant object of observation. So Buddhahood is caused by the actual great compassion. So great compassion is important at the beginning, when one starts practice, in the middle when one is traversing the various stages, and at the end in order to achieve complete Buddhahood.
Shanchu sen tiba chimbe lan jugo yinzang Shanchu sen jule shungwas wo ting samarba Shanchu chutu sen jeba sanje sanje tu rebesna sanje tu mares ane shidru tang ane sis parbashin tang ten parbashin wo tu su lago ba yinzo sa taji paru di shimbas wo tu su kna tsu sona dala tene sanje tu yungures wo te kamala shi lago ribak dungu samarba.
So the meaning, or the point being made by Kamala Shila it follows with what Lama Tsong-kha-pa states. Lama Tsong-kha-pa states that bodhicitta is the entrance into the Mahayana, but that the cause of bodhicitta is great compassion. So the bodhicitta, the mind that aspires to enlightenment, is the entrance into the Mahayana. Without bodhicitta, one cannot become enlightened, because without bodhicitta, the perfection of method cannot be completed. So with bodhicitta, one can perfect method by engaging in the 6 perfections and the 10 perfections, and then achieve the state of Buddhahood. But with the absence of bodhicitta, the state of Buddhahood is not possible. So we find this common, we see how the importance of it.
ane shaju sen gombu suni son bares ati shay jong la tene junde menga du jugo ne sen chi su dan haba shawala jong la tene da jen nya ba ji go ne sen chi su ni son bares marba da junde menga du jugo ne sen chi su de ma ji ten so yong ku sha na ni ji la san du de marba la so ti nan hi ji zaores la so what the hi ji zaos de Kamala Shila Rudo te samarba.
And before, I hope I translated it right. The bodhicitta is the door to the Mahayana, being caused by great compassion. So then when we look at the mind that aspires to enlightenment, there are 2 lineages of instruction that allow a practitioner, or show a practitioner how to realize the mind that aspires to enlightenment. The first lineage of instruction was passed down through Lord Atisha, and is called the 7-point cause and effect for achieving the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So this is the first lineage of instruction. And the second lineage of instruction was passed down by Lord Shantideva. And this lineage of instruction is called the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice. So we'll begin with Lord Atisha's 7-point cause and effect for achieving the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And in this particular process, we find 6 causes in one result. We have first, recognizing all sentient beings as our mother. Second, remembering their kindness. Third, wishing to repay their kindness. Fourth, love through the force of attraction. Fifth, great compassion. 6, the extraordinary attitude. And then 7, the actual mind that aspires to enlightenment. So this is the 7-step process passed down through Lord Atisha for achieving this mind.
Touche.
So when we look at the Kamala Shila text, and we see that at the root of the Mahayana we find great compassion. We see in the 7-point cause and effect how it becomes part of the cause and effect for the generation of the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So we see how Kamala Shila is in the instructions and this instruction are compatible.
다 준네 명아 뒤주고는 희지 첨부도 대바집에 나서 자와 예송사 다 준네 명아 뒤고 논 뒤지 나네 아니 희지 주까지 요래 레부까지 요스나 준데 제나 준데 순주 주스 다 마셰지 진전지 지조 용그 샤바 제데 희지 첨부 주레스 하산다 세진이데 희지 제부레스
So when we look at from a cause and effect perspective, when we look at what great compassion is caused by and what great compassion results, or what the fruit of great compassion is, we look to the 7-point cause and effect instruction. And we find that the first 4 points that are made, recognizing all sentient beings as our mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, and love through the force of attraction, become the causes for great compassion. And then the results of great compassion are the extraordinary attitude and the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So this is how we look at it in terms of cause and effect.
셰러지 바로 드시면 러버샤우스 최다지 뭐저 사제번 되바이나 세제바 장제 사제도 말이다 셰러지 바로 드시면 신발라 수베 시시 파시 둘하고 그래서 터지 바로 드시면 어디서 말이야
So the long the journey
된도른도
최단지 안 들어도
최단지 나바타제도 뭐바주바 사자완 되베 셰러지 바르데 파신시든 세지가 도요세도 어디서요 최단지 뭐바타제 나바주 사자완 되베 사제야 되바요바이나 안 세지바 사제도 말다스.
So if one wishes to achieve the state of all-knowing, unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment, it's not possible without the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So we find this in the sutra teachings, and Rinpoche referenced it to Panchen Sonandrapa's text. We find it in as well, the general meaning of perfection. And it states that if one wishes to create the causes for this perfection, and specifically the method side of the perfection, one must engage in the 6 perfections and therefore must have the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or bodhicitta, in order to follow these bodhisattva perfections, of the 6 perfections. And then and only then one can achieve the state of Buddhahood, the state of omniscience.
So
the great compassion is at the root of the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And then if the mind that aspires to enlightenment then allows one to engage in the practices of the 6 perfections and achieve the state of Buddhahood. So the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice that was presented by Lord Buddha showed the downfalls of the self-cherishing attitude and the excellent qualities of cherishing others. So here we find the explanation of the negativity of self-cherishing and the excellence of cherishing others, or the excellent quality of cherishing others.
네 제가 담방을 너무 제대로 제가 이제 나 어신에 되면 주다 내로 제가 봐 내로 제가 잡았다 총도 동물 맞지 봐 인디다 동물 맞지 봐 집이 집이 나지 로장 손도 말해 당 아주 총도 통을 라지를 벌로자면 주가도 레디오로 봐. 들라 상바장 응원당 상바의 집이 달러로 두세와스 사지 송지송아. 다 상바장 응원당 집에 지대 심한 되는 줄로 제바다. 지대 심한데 더 대바 니가 너네 지대 심한데 더 대바 정도 갖고 레디 말이야.
Bless it. So when we now look at Lama Tsong-kha-pa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, and the fourth point of the outline, how students train in the actual instructions, we begin with the point of how to rely upon the teacher, that is the root of the path, and then a second point of how students train their minds after having relied upon the teacher. So then when we get to that second point, we find the exhortation to take full advantage of leisure and opportunity and how to take advantage of life of leisure and opportunity. And then when we get to the section of how to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity, it begins with two main points. Refuge, training in refuge, the excellent entrance into the teaching, and then developing faith and conviction in karma and its results. So these are the two main heading points that are, I skipped something, I apologize. So after how to train the actual instructions, I skipped a whole section, I'm sorry. So after how to train in the actual instructions, we have how to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity, or the actual way to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. And there are three categories. First, training the mind in the stages of the past shared in common with beings of small capacity. Second, training the mind in the stages of the past shared in common with beings of medium capacity. And then third, training the mind in the stages of the path shared in common with beings of great capacity. So beginning with training the mind in the stages of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, we have three major headings. First, developing the state of mind of a person of small capacity. Secondly, the measurement of the development of the state of mind of a person of small capacity. Thirdly, eradicating or negating any misconceptions about the person of small capacity or the mind of the person of small capacity. So these are the 3 points that are made. And then after that, under the major heading of the developing the state of mind of the person of small capacity, we find 2 major headings. Developing a state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives, and then relying on a means for achieving happiness in one's next life. So we've gone through all those sections, and we're on now the section of relying on a means for achieving happiness in one's next life, and that's when we get to the topic of refuge, the excellent entrance or gateway into the instruction, and then the second point of developing faith and conviction in karma and its results.
산지군주 주군주 근육군주 송라教授 좋았지. 되네 렌데게 나자니도 말봐. 다 전도 시에바들라教授수 전도 하자 사제시 말봐. 다教授 주들라와들 전도 데브레스 전도 데브 인자 아는 콜 주고 그래 쟁고 그래스. 편안하고 신다부터 근데 왜 인자 들 신의 제발아 안 소고도 시 말봐 소 여바장제 되는 신원제 도도 살다는 사당 초당 류당 뭐 초소나 는 신도 제공도 되나지 되는 가자
주
or 전도 주고 or 전도 주도 야부 상소나는 전도 야부 용거래서 그러나 보고 조종 첼레스는 시에그래서 근데 그 시용도 그 전도 주지 상도 왔어 보고 조종 상도를 가려와서나 그 치지발 잡에 네바트 파말이여 예시요 거래서 예시요는 첼레스나 보고 조종 파말 저도 왔어 된나지 가서 제가 나지 동에 내송도 동에 그 등을 산다운도 나도 신앙용으로다 전도 주지 상고하랬어 어들래 온도 강라 저선도 샤자도 받아버들래 네 이시요나 아니 전도 야부용으로서 어디 송대에서 말이야
So then we get to the section on refuge and karma and its results. So under this major section, which is called relying on a means for achieving happiness in the next life, we find going for refuge the excellent entrance into the instruction or gateway into the instruction in developing faith and conviction in karma and its results. So the refuge has 4 points that are made. First, the causes of refuge. Second, based on that, the objects to which you go for refuge. Third, is how to go for refuge, and then fourthly, the advices on refuge. So the advices for refuge. So refuge is a result, and all results depend upon causes. If we look at a fruit, for instance, and it needs various causes and cooperative conditions in order for it to arise. So first of all, there must be a seed, but if the seed is just planted, there won't be a sprout that will emerge that can turn into a fruit. There also has to be the various conditions of watering and the fertile soil and so forth. And if all of these causes and conditions are there, then the fruit tree can grow, or fruit can grow. But if they are not there, it will not. Likewise, refuge is a result, therefore it depends upon its causes. And the causes of refuge are fear and faith. And an analogy or an example that's given is that of a child who encounters a very scary dog. He or she then has fear of that dog and then runs to his or her parents for protection, because he or she has faith and conviction in her parents, his or her parents, that the child will be protected from the dog. Likewise, when we look at it in the context of Buddhist refuge, when we analyze the various types of suffering, the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death, the suffering of the lower realms, the suffering of cyclic existence, we begin to have a fear of these states, or these various types of suffering. And then, if we study well and understand the basis, then we can establish a faith and conviction in Buddha who can protect us from these fears, the fears of the various types of suffering.
What the Chajatua double Josu Dogina could Josu Jusen Jisangers Marba, Josu Jusen, and the Kon Yomoba the Shiji Jiba Tajil Trisabres, and the Jen Dugan Jabi Tall Kibaris, and the Sejan Tajila Hiji waters. Pentamata Tajil, Dunshigres, the Sudan, Chajatua double Josu Dogina, Joe Tours.
So why then do we say that Buddha Shakyamuni is an appropriate object of refuge? And there are 4 reasons that are given that establish his Buddha Shakyamuni being appropriate basis of refuge. First is that he is a master of fear, meaning that he has eradicated the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. So there are no longer afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience, so therefore he is all-knowing. Secondly, he has method scholar, Tsong-kha-pa, a method scholar. He is skilled in method, skilled in the means of method for disciples. Thirdly, he has great compassion. And fourth is that there is a non-discriminatory help or aid that Buddha will give. Whether someone has benefited Buddha or not benefited Buddha, Buddha is always willing to help. So there's no discrimination as to who the Buddha is willing to help. So first has afflicted. So those are the 4 reasons that Buddha Shakyamuni is an appropriate object of refuge.
That's what Johnson Sumarve. Johnson Sudel, the new Shibukun, Johnson Dua, Chaba Shibukun, Johnson Dua, Kilabukun, Johnson Dua, Jendo Mayakun, Johnson Dua, Jendo Fujimarva. You then Shibukun, Johnson Dua, Sanji Juyen, Chu Juyen, Geni Juyen, Shibukun, Johnson Dua, Sonji, and the Tele Juyen to the back. The Sanji, the Chu Juyen, the Geni Juyen, Tele Juyen, 다들 최지인데 근류지인데 어두세 아버지소나 안에 그 정도도 아부용 거지로原来시부군 저준로와 처바 시부군 저준로와스다 존도도 생일 주비 처바 트레지 처바 매비 처바 두비 처바 제수 두비 처바 소나비 처바 존도도 로로 친사로
So when we get to the next part, which is the way you go for refuge, there are 4 points that are made. First, by going for refuge by knowing the excellent qualities. Second, going for refuge by knowing the differences or the distinctions. Thirdly, going for refuge by commitment or assertion. And fourth, going for refuge by not acknowledging other refuges or outsiders, other refuges. Outsiders' refuges. So these are the 4 points that are made. So when we get to the first point, the way one goes for refuge by knowing the excellent qualities, there are 3 categories: the excellent qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and then a 4th additional category, the excellent qualities of the enlightened activities. Which is added, translators note the excellent qualities of the Buddha, but there are enlightened activities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So we're just stating that here, just to avoid confusion. So then, the next part that is dealt with is going for refuge by knowing the distinctions or the differences. And there are six points that are made, or 6 distinctions that are made. First is going for refuge by knowing the definition. Distinction of definition. Secondly is by knowing the enlightened activities. Thirdly is by knowing through devotion, rupa. The 4th is through practice. 5th is through recollection, and the 6th is through through increase of merit. So these are the 6 ways that one can go for refuge by knowing the distinctions between the various jewels, between the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha jewel. And then there are 6 distinctions that LamRim Tsong-kha-pa makes.
다 사지 건축도 매마다 버리 저 덤버 버리스 사지 건축도 매마다 버리 저 덤버 버리스 근데 가서 나사지 내바지 종소나 캔시다 제비다 어떻게 나사 여바이나 안 다다질 저도 그러서 말이야 다다가 다지지 아니 저런 나산들이자 들 맨드 사공도스 아니 다다가 어디 맨데 말이야 다다 저 덤버 매마다 버리스 아니 매박 대자 매 내박 사나 나사자 그래 내박 마자나 나사자 말
Less
then 사지 송샤베 델루이라 타비라 사지 공부도 라도서 팬단다이 어디다 냐래 제기나 델루를 제기래 타발도 그래 사지도 그래스 아니 근데 저도 ben다로 다 같이 근데 건 같이 개개제 아니 같이 주도 나무 되네 말이야. The
Kelam, the Chu Nyamlan Che Not May. Okay, Tu Chen. So then the next is going for refuge by way of knowing through commitment or through assertion. And this is asserting that the Buddha is like a doctor, and that the Dharma is like medicine, and that the Sangha are similar to our spiritual friends, our Dharma friends who will aid us. So here we find that we state that the Buddha is like the doctor, because the Buddha presents us with the various pathways, the 3 pathways of the small, medium, and great capacity of the lead to the higher realms, liberation and complete Buddhahood. So the Buddha teaches these things, and the Dharma are the pathways which are like the medicine that the Buddha teaches. So the Buddha teaches us these things, but the practices of those teachings, the application of those teachings is like taking the medicine that the doctor actually gives. And the Sangha is like a nurse or a spiritual aid or a spiritual friend. Like regular medicine, if the doctor prescribes it for us as an antidote to our tuberculosis or cancer or whatever illness we've been diagnosed with, if the medicine is given and we don't take it, then it doesn't serve as an antidote to our illness. So it's necessary to receive the diagnosis and the prescription, but also then take the medicine that's given to us. And then the pathway and the Dharma is compared to the medicine. So this is the asserting that the Buddha is like a doctor, the Dharma is like medicine, and the Sangha is like a nurse or a spiritual friend. So the next section that deals with a refusing of acknowledgement of other refuges. So we're on page 189 in English, and we're on page Jadan de Kelempe Jasusoma. Okay, Shendu. Okay, Rasa. So going for refuge by refusing to acknowledge other refuges. So this is where we are. It's D in the English. Shendu.
Tela luba najis, Nami Tembala luba nyetutan, Rajeta, Shanchu Sambatu Marva, Luba Naji, Chumich, Chaba Shene, Conal Johnson was, what the leg was, what about the inch illusion?
So we'll just read the English and then we'll give a commentary. Going for refuge by refusing to acknowledge other refuges means, first of all, understanding the differences in worth between Buddhist and non-Buddhist teachers, teachings, and disciple. For then you will uphold the three jewels as your refuge, and etc. So here, this is meaning looking at what is actual Dharma in this case, and what a teacher is in the case of Buddhism. Who is the teacher? I hate to use that word "the," but I think it's the only way to make it make sense. So who's the, I don't want to say supreme because it's not there. So it's who is the teacher? And what does the teacher teach? The teacher teaches Dharma, and those that aren't the teacher don't teach Dharma. So this is the point that's being made here, and what the distinction is, and then it will then go on to distinguish what that means, why the Dharma distinguishes the Buddha as the teacher, or qualifies him to be the teacher. So this section then goes into dealing with that, and then it says. Teachings. It gets into in the Tibetan. It speaks to the Dumba Dan Demba, the scriptural, the realizational, and the. So it's speaking to once one recognizes what the scriptural and the truths that the Buddha has presented are. The differences, and one can begin to distinguish between these traditions. So once one knows what the Dumba Dan Demba, Injike Jetsukai, the Dumba Dan Demba.
Dumba Dan Demba Godu.
The Nawa Dan Shiwei, Dumba Dan Demba Dan Dela, Lupa Nangi, Chuk Menshine.
Talangasu Dumba Dumbi Chaba Mungo Diva, Dumbi Chaba.
Yine ngama de chirandi losun de shendu me mawe jat susonwani nawa dan toga. That's toga.
Shendu me jat susonwa kado.
Marpo.
That no other jen do mama you going to jat susonwas. yen do ma yi kun jiao sun ra song du le nabi tamba chu re nabi tamba chu re nabi tamba nyang so lang ge chu re wo de lo ma yen do ma yi kun jiao su su ma nes namba da shibi tamba da namba da shibi tamba je na chu gar re na nabi tamba chu re shibi tamba chu ma re nabi tamba chu re shibi tamba chu ma re ane te nabi tamba le loba chu re shibi tamba loke na chu ma re
Okay, so the teachers and the truths. So not the realizations, I apologize. The teachers and the truths they teach. So the differences between the teachers and the truths they teach. So in the worth between Buddhist and non-Buddhist teachers, teachings, and disciples. So, then
what the Chume Shene, and the Kunju Sukonala, Josun Zinji, the Dadama Timbi Tamba Sula, Josun Mazipavus,
Lesser.
Tanji Temple to Josun to Jumares, what the lady world, what about the J?
For then you will uphold only the three jewels as your refuge and refuse teachers, teaching, and disciples that do not accord with them. The distinctions between the Buddhist and non-Buddhist teachers, etc., are as follows. So here it says that once one understands intellectually the differences, then one won't go for refuge to outsiders' teachings. And then we begin with the distinction of teacher, Dumbi Chepa.
Tantan mata nabi temba luba to chure shiribi temba luba to members what the leon dia gaba jago sa dansi bares what the tenju mares sanji to sombares and glonta ga kena je seji dai seji to lebata la ngai ka long sha yu means and sanjil deba yu can glue in and glue my in and sanjil homa yu sent jene sanjil somba kan kelen go ma des sanjil so kan de kelen go sna say you can get the say you ba na jin and say malsia dol da chönje je ba so ba ta je leba june say you ba na jin and say je mo sun je ba modu jeba isi jeba taji chen jönmu kelens jöndu kelen gomares sanji goto sumbares.
So the Buddha, when we look at the difference between why as Buddhists do we do this? So we state the distinction between this teacher and the distinction between this truth and the distinction between this disciple, etc. Here we do this because the Buddha stated himself not to follow him unless it was thoroughly analyzed. So the Buddha stated, all fully ordained monks, nuns, lay followers, etc., do not follow me because I am Lord Buddha. Follow me only because after you've analyzed my teachings and found them to be true, just as you would a piece of gold, cut and rub it and check it for accuracy before you buy it. Check my teachings. So this part follows in Buddha's advice to not follow Buddha unless having already proven through direct valid cognition or inferential valid cognition of sorts the JPOGs some lausen.
돈이 러서 또 그걸로 대바니다 대바제도서 뭐도 제바기 시작하면 뭐도 제바 안에 신도 그릇이 이제 제바로 그러 이제 제바 아니 결혼 저 변이 레드 수사버래 가두 사버래 어떤 제바 있는 신고 말해 어때 이제 당한다는 또 그렇다.
So when we look at the inferential valid cognition, inferential valid cognition is a category of valid cognition, but it's valid cognition that is arrived at through inference. And there are there are three types of inferential valid cognition.
Buddhist sense logic
So there are three different types of Buddhists of inferential valid cognition, and this inferential valid cognition is arrived at through reliance upon sign and reasoning that establishes it as an actual valid cognition. So we have direct valid cognition, and then inferential valid cognition, which establishes establishes itself based upon a sign, a correct sign.
다 시르빌 하다 예수글 하다 힌두글 하다 저술 고바제 오래 안 나바제는 저술을 줘요 말해서 버렸다 고바제보다 전도 가가래도 말이야 안 유라제다도 상당 어떤 제네 로그들이 두줄 최고로다 저술을 줘요 말해서 어떤 잡아진 지그로스.
So then when we begin to analyze this and understand, then we recognize that other than Buddha refuges are not valid refuges. And this also goes for, within the tradition, the local deities and so forth, and spirits. They are not appropriate refuges. So this is establishing Buddha as the true refuge.
다들 담은들 해도 덤비 제반에 사제는 죄매진에 둘라스 제지 덤바는 들레 두바테 제바 파들레 단 덤바 제보네 존데 졸라 저수치 대질해도 제나 죄명하라 된댄스 어디 부드생 도용도 더 인실로 인실.
So now we then have the distinction based on teacher. The Buddha is without faults and has protected good qualities, but the teachers of other religions are the opposite of this. And then it's Upta Siddha Vaman's Praise of the Exalted One. We have a quote from then, and I'll read the quote. Having forsaken other teachers, I go for refuge, O Bhagavan. If someone asks why, it is because you have no faults and possess all excellent qualities.
What does that Sanjay Jundende Sanjay Jundende Yuden Yusuba, Sanjay Jundende Yuden Yusuba is Numa but she debug Ponsa in Susan, Yuden Yusula, Jeji Tumba and Teleduba test, Sheriff Tumbalas to Sukalo, Yuden Yusuba Mares, Duba test. The Susan was in the Chapa Patueles, Roger Penny, what the Pen Jaga. 범니도와 처바파들레 단 덤바젠보네 조den초라 저수세 대지레도 제나주 죄명하라요 된데스 조제 와코니가 다 그래서 너무 코니 시발 저수는 되도 인도이죠 아나 루가젠 시바 줘가진 루가젠데 나바다 벽 사상을 가르지요로 어디 주 강가 리베트 되는 모요로다 Hindu what the Kanga Ribate, Shibak blessings. Kanga to the Mayunta, what the Masuna Martin, Shibag Neres. What the Lama Chu Kanga to Yuayita, Chu Kanga, Shibak blessings. What the true jug in the Debatak said, what the Marvel. What the Rendua Takuni Ru Kanjele and Shiba Chukan Ranger, Takuni Shiba Jibares. And then Shiba Sanjil Chosen over the Kuni Tungores. Then the Kuni Lonjun and Nabachane and Chabapatu, what the Chabapatu can do the
So here, this praise of the Exalted One, I'll read it again with comment, well, actually the history. So the praise of the Exalted One was written because of an event that took place. There were two brothers who went to the top of a snow, who were in devotion to Shiva, the Hindu god Shiva. And they were climbing up to the top of this snow mountain where Shiva was said to stay or abide. And this is the reason that in this particular snow mountain, the Himalayas, they state, the snow runs down from it into the Ganges River and blesses the Ganges River, and this is why the Ganges River people bathe in it and so forth as Hindus, because there is a belief that there is a blessing in that water from Shiva. So there are two brothers who went to go meet with Shiva, devoted to Shiva, and climbed this mountain. And when they got to the top, they found Shiva taking refuge in Lord Buddha. As a result of this, they became very full of faith for Lord Buddha. And then when they came back down, they wrote this praise of the Exalted One. So then here it says, having forsaken other teachers, having forsaken outsiders' teachers. So this is after having seen this event. I go for refuge, O Bhagavan. If someone should ask why, it is because you have no faults. So all the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience have been abandoned and possess all good qualities. So because of that, only excellent qualities are possessed. The state of omniscience and so forth, the state of perfection. So this is the first stanza that's written in praise of Lord Shakyamuni based on the experience that they had.
So here, if
we look at this in terms of Buddhist signs, if we were to look at it, the subject, the Bhagavan, is worthy of refuge, or one goes for refuge to, because he has abandoned all negativities and has all excellent qualities, has abandoned the obstructions to afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, and has only good qualities. So if we were to formulate this in terms of like a dialectical style, we would say the subject, the Bhagavan, is worthy of refuge because he has abandoned all faults and possesses all excellent qualities. So this is one when we say the signs in Buddhism. So this is one sign, and sometimes it's called reason, sign or reason, to show the point that's being, prove the point that's being made. Or proof is sometimes used. Then the same text goes on to say, the more I reflect on other non-Buddhist traditions, so the more I study the tenets of these other traditions, outsiders' traditions, and then look at the truths that the Buddha has taught, the greater becomes my faith, O protector. Their minds are ruined by the faults of the tenets devised by those who are not omniscient. Those whose minds are ruined cannot even see you, faultless teacher. So those whose minds have been distorted by faulty tenet systems, which are not the truth, and were not made by an omniscient being, have their minds ruined in a way, in such a way that they can't even see the greatness of the Buddha because of the distortion that they've in their tenet systems that they've been taught by a non-omniscient being. So this is the second point that's made. The more reflection and study of all the tenets of the non-Buddhist traditions, and then the study of the tenets of Buddhist traditions, the faith becomes greater because the teacher is omniscient.
다 부드센터 가수서 루루진 러샤바이나 샤자투바 주제 덤바 주인데 아네 녀모바다 시지 제비 주메라 연된 뉴스조바 나이 덤바 힘베실 어두거잔디사 말이야. So
when we say the subject Buddha Shakyamuni is the teacher of the Dharma, we would say because has abandoned all, has no faults and possesses all excellent qualities.
다 나네 로니바 노데요로 양나 저 담바진 된지고 양 샤자 두바 주지 담바 주인데 대지 롱아 좀 담바 임베지.
So the second proof that we can give to show the worthiness of Buddha to be the teacher, we find in the second chapter of Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika Karika, where he states that you alone have taught us the four superior truths. You are the only teacher of the four superior truths. So we would say the subject Buddha Shakyamuni is the teacher of Dharma because he alone is the teacher of the Four Noble Truths.
다 주선 소바드 다 샤자 두바 주지 담바 주이데 라이라 임베지. 그래서 디서 말이야. 라이라 임베지.
Less so.
어들레시지 뭔고들 된중 진라션다 세징에 르메다보 타기돌라서 신의 제빙가로 쳐줘봐 로빈제나 제장 가게고 통유면라 님이 메시지 내가 주신 제비 주변에 강기샤비 그베된시바 통화하이라라 샤절로스 다 어데 된중선의 시바말 된중 시바래 된중 진라션 안에 고시가로 참 인더와 단 참바스나
Brahma.
바마로 바마 드뉴텐 라슌데 세징에 참바제 르메다부 두가랑주 말바
Kama.
두가랑주 이제로다 르메다부 타규도 천주 이제래
Vishnu.
지데벨 하도수 지덴 다코술 하바면서 가제 접시다 요아레스
That's so.
이나 코주 유엔데 마주 바글 라이테도 벌외지도 된다고마도요
That's so.
된다 매바도 코노스가 상지도 두용들래 코주 쉐고아레스
That's so.
쉐두 되는 코주게 주변에 상지가 주변 거는 자네 저서 두고 대인소서 샤자도 봐 사이라
Less so. So the third point that's made is that Buddha Shakyamuni is a god to the gods. And we find a point that's made in Lama Tsong-kha-pa's beginning of the Essence of Eloquence, where he states that all of you gods, Shiva, Indra, Brahma, Kama, and Vishnu, all filled with self-infatuation, who roar your lordship over our world, are like dim, like a firefly in the light of the sun, and your sparkle seems to and even all of your sparkle seems to wane in the presence of the body. And here the body is speaking of Buddha. In the presence of the body, and they bow to the lotus feet of the Buddha. So here, and I too bow in this same way. I too pay homage in this same way. So we find at the beginning of Essence of Eloquence this statement that's made that the worldly other gods are like a firefly when we look at the light itself, and that the Buddha is like a sun, and the firefly is dimmed as soon as the sun is out. And this is it says then and then just by seeing the body of the Buddha, all these sparkling diadems bow at the Buddha's lotus feet. So this is the pith or the main point of that first part of the Essence of Eloquence.
다 쇼르부 담바추 마이데 안에 주문가라 예대 요소 마이 베시 대지로 담바 마이 베시 타이라 마이 베시 그래서 하고
Less so. So then when we look at the 3 points that are made of why Buddha Shakyamuni is worthy to be the teacher of Dharma, we would say first, the subject Buddha is the teacher of the Dharma because he possesses no faults and possesses only good qualities. The subject Buddha is the teacher of Dharma because he alone is the only teacher who has taught the Four Noble Truths. And lastly, the Buddha is the teacher of Dharma because he is the refuge of the gods.
다 템비 쳐버린도 템비 쳐봐 템비 쳐봐는 제위 템바네 라데 도와토바다 그유줄에 도바다 녀모바 다버셔바다 탄도 몰로와다 찌도 거와다 네바 다버셔바 네바 다버셔라 Shuru Taban Tadale Dubate, Chabu Padules, Kali Chuji Tambane, Deyu Dwa, Tojeba, Tele Mayu, Saint Chuji, Jululane, Rundetans,
Let's hope. So then the next is the distinction of the teaching, or the Dharma. The conqueror's teaching. So when we see this word teaching here, it's Dharma or teaching you can use. So we're going to just keep reading as goes, because English. The distinction of the teaching. The conqueror's teaching allows you to attain its goal of bliss through a joyful path. It stops the stream of cyclic existence, clears away the afflictions, does not mislead those who desire liberation, is completely virtuous, and clears away faults. Non-Buddhist teachings are the opposite. And then there's another quote from the praise of the Exalted One that says, "Your teaching causes one to attain bliss through the joyful. Therefore, O lion of speakers, intelligent beings have faith in your tradition." So we're going to take a short break.
Tembi chaba nesa. Ta sanji ki temba sana longi temba to tubi temba ni yuwa resi marba. Sanji ki temba to la longi temba to tubi temba ni. Ta longi temba to show sana nye tuji tolang kulang marma re.
Tubi temba.
Tu ware longi temba sana degi do. Longi temba sanji kare ka. Nga su peol juba te poto jayu ro ja. Wate longi temba re. Longi temba tang.
Tanjur.
Longi chuku tanjur tu marba.
Da.
Tanjur sanji ka longi temba re. Sanji ka inreba inchi ina re, jayi ina re, keri kaba ina pyo ina sama longi temba re.
Let's so.
Chebe mares. What longi temba so what marba longi temba.
Then do be them and nye.
Ta longi temba je. Ta tubi temba sana lasun nyale siro. Laba sungi nyale. Suri je laba, tengenzi je laba, shiro laba. Longi chuku sana sanji ka. Longi chuku sana sanji ka roa. Nga su pyo juya potu jayo roa. Wada nga sun deni potu tu sanji ka rebe sana te ka mare te. Ka iso nye. Nga su de teni jayo ro. Te sanji ka su mingi tabar ma do. Sanji ka mare se. Shiro nyebi de te shiro nyebi mare se. Shiro nyebi de anjun draji doa. Wada shiro nyebi de draja kores. Sanji ka ndono dile anjun draji kaya ro. Wada sanji ka res. Tenju te kanga jiba res.
Then dubi chukur.
Dubi chukur nye tu jilanga, raja jilanga, ane shansan jilanga, sanji jilanga tu so, an dubi chukur marwe. Teya tang gade, parasangade, budi soas, langa tele, dubi chukur so tere, dubi chukur. Dubi chukur ina langi micha, langi na dubi chukur micha. Tene sanji ka ina, longi chukur micha. Longi chuku ina sanji ka imicha.
So, and when we look at the teaching itself, we can divide it into various categories. We can divide teaching into scriptural truth and realizational truth. So scriptural truth is referring to the pronouncements of Lord Buddha or the authentic Indian commentaries. Realizational truth is referring to the three highest higher trainings, practices of the three highest higher trainings. And then when we go to scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma, this is necessarily speaking to the pronouncements of Lord Buddha. So if it's scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma, it is necessarily the pronouncement of Lord Buddha. And then the realizational turning of the wheel of Dharma is referring to any among the 5 paths of the hearers, solitary realizers, or bodhisattvas. So the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, path of meditation, and the path of no more learning for any of those practitioners of hearers, solitary realizers, or bodhisattva vehicles. So it is necessarily a pathway. If it is a realizational turning of the wheel of doctrine, it is necessarily a path. If it is a scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma, it is necessarily the Buddha's speech. Now, when we look at the scriptural truth or scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma, this is an actual, and when we say that this is the Kangjur, the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, and the Tanjur, and then when we say that the Lungdemba, the scriptural truth, is the Kangjur and Tanjur, and the scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma is the just Buddha's speech, the Kangjur. These are nominally designated as such because its speech is sound. Speech is an actual sound. When we have the Heart Sutra in a book, it's not actually a pronouncement until it's sound. So it's named as the scriptural truth, but it's the actual sound of the words themselves which are the actual scripture. So the Heart Sutra was spoken into the ear, from Buddha into the ear of disciple. So this is the actual scriptural truth. It would be scriptural truth as well as scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma because it's Buddha's speech.
What the Kajik Sanjay got the Shiba is a Gayoris. Shiba is a lover in a Tujung Shera Jun Shebajuro, Tujung Shera Jatu Maris, Da Anjun Tune, Tujung Shera Yungu, Shiba Anjun Tuyamaro. And the dying goes on Da. Sanjay Kala dying wood, the Tujung Shera, Sanjung Shera.
Some say that this is not the case. But in order for the various types of wisdom to arise, the wisdom arisen from hearing must arise from sound. So this is the reason why that negates the idea that this is the actual scriptural truth, just the text, because the wisdom that arises can't arise from anything but hearing, and then contemplation, and then meditation. So this is the negation of that is the scriptural truth, when it has to be sound. Because the sound is what gives rise to the wisdom arisen from hearing.
Sanjay Temba the Gawaris, Gawayi Zang, and Coladen Debudawa Yungres, Land de Debudawa Tuba Image, Buddhisanji, Tombadua, Toba Tans.
So here, what is the first distinction in teaching? The subject, the Buddha's teaching, is different because the conqueror's teaching allows you to attain its goal of bliss, the goal of happiness, through a joyful path. So the goal of ultimate happiness through a path. So this is the first distinction that's made. So then if we say it in a negative form, the outsiders' views are not the Chuchen So the outsiders' views are not Dharma because they do not let you attain the goal of, it says goal of bliss or goal of happiness through a path, a joyful path. So we would say that outsiders are not Dharma because they don't allow one to achieve this happiness through a path of joy.
Number Sanji with Temba Chu Yite, Kui Jule, Duba Imbezer, Duba Shibezer, Hanji Temba Nalajina, and the Dunga Debata, Kunju Debata, what to support the Taban Dugruda, Kui Ju, Duba Shibezer, Sherubi Temba Chu Maide, Kui Jule, Duba Imbezer. Nabi Temba Chu Yite, Kui Jule, Duba Imbezer.
So then the subject, the Buddha Dharma, is Dharma because it stops the stream of cyclic existence. It abandons the truth of suffering and abandons the truth of origin, which is the stream of cyclic existence. It's the cause of cyclic existence. A non-outsider's view is not Dharma because it does not stop the stream of cyclic existence.
다 나바상집이 템바 주제 주인데 녀모바는 상황시 비해서 녀모바는 상황 상황이 템바는 돈이 두비 싫어 요아래 맞다바 두비 더 공부를 되네 안에 너차도 공도도 또뭐가 다는 본으로다 녀모바는 상황 시비해서 다 싫어 템바 주 많이데 녀모바는 상황 뭐 시비해서 어떤 인사.
So the next is the Buddha. The Buddha's Dharma is Dharma because it clears away the afflictions. It clears away the attachment, the hatred, and the delusions, and so forth. So the subject, the outsiders, is not Dharma because it does not clear away the affliction. Their teachings do not clear away the afflictions completely.
다 나바상집이 템바 주제 주의의 탄도 몰로 임베시르 나바상집이 주 냐네 제겐솔레 타반되바도 로그마레스 타반되바 나지 타바토바 용거레스 타바토바 요아레스 타바토바 몰로 임베시르 다시르비 템바 들도들어야
So the subject, the Buddha Dharma, is Dharma because it does not mislead those who desire liberation. So there isn't any error in the way to get to the state of liberation, whereas the subject outsiders have errors and mislead those who desire liberation. So there are errors that mislead the practitioner to thinking they're achieving liberation when they aren't.
다 나바상집이 템바 주인데 타지도 거와 임베시 지도 거와 임베시 실로 템바 주 많이데 타지도 거만 어떤
So the next point that's made is the Buddha Dharma is Dharma because it is completely virtuous. The subject outsiders is not Dharma because it is not completely virtuous. Everything isn't virtuous.
다 나바상집이 템바 주인데 녀바 다버시베 르지 녀바 나기 녀바 이지 녀바 어네 르지 디바 나기 디바도 다버시베 어디 가서 그래 라도 공기는 르마이스 디바 다는 거다 말봐 다버시베 시르비도 받으면 두두 이자래.
So the subject, the Buddha Dharma, is Dharma because it clears away all faults. The subject outsider's view is not Dharma because it does not clear away all faults. And when we speak of faults, we're speaking of misdeeds of our body, misdeeds of our speech, misdeeds of our mind. Through a path that we practice, we're able to clear away all of those things, eradicate all of those faults, whereas we can't do so in a complete way with outsiders' views.
다 시르비 템바는 다달레 두바테스 다 돈다 맞추 주zen 코서로 라데 도와시베시 데도 메제베 돈고 두바.
So then here it says non-Buddhist teachings are the opposite. So we just did that. We went through it in its opposite way to show this last sentence.
라데 도와 투바시베시 쿠이줄레 두베시 뇨모 타바시베 탄도 몰로 임베시 지도가 임베시 네바다지 임베시 sis Buddhism.
So
sis Buddhism 마임비 sis Buddhism 임비 sis Buddhism.
So we find 6 different Buddhist signs that are given, 6 positive affirming signs and negating and 6 negative signs within this. So we find the Conqueror's teachings allows you to attain its goal of bliss through a joyful path. It stops the stream of cyclic existence, clears away the afflictions, does not mislead those who desire liberation, is completely virtuous and clears away all faults. So these 6 are the positive, and their absence of that would be the negative. Absence of that.
But
we must say that outsiders or those of practitioners of other religions are benefited greatly, and those religions are very great. We're looking very great. So they are just religious practitioners like us. The Uma Kanga. So when we find there really is no harm in this discussion, because in the Buddhist tenet systems, we have exactly the same thing. We have 4 tenet systems. We have the Vaibhashika school, Sautrantika school, the Chittamantran school, and the Madhyamaka school. And within the Madhyamaka school, there are 2 schools. The middle way, I'll just use these in English. The Great Exposition School, the Sutra School, the Mind-Only School, and the Middle Way School. The Middle Way Autonomy School and the Middle Way Consequence School. Middle Way Consequence School is the highest school of reasoning. And they state that things do not have any intrinsic nature because things are not truly established and have no intrinsic nature because they dependently originate. This point negates the Middle Way Autonomy view, negates the Mind-Only view, negates the Sutra School's view, and negates the Great Exposition School's view. So even within Buddhism, the tenets within themselves negate each other for the point of truth. These are Buddhist tenets that we're talking about, differing, and within them having these differences. So when we speak of outsiders or non-Buddhists, we're just comparing and looking at this. So it's looked at in a way like a staircase that one goes up, that one, as they go through these tenets, gets rid of the various faults within their view, his or her views, till they get to the highest tenet system. So they're like staircases. The difference between your the Chepagare, the Sanjay Ka, Dan Shilupi Ka, Chepagare, Tambo, the Dene.
Sanjay Ka, Dan Shilupi Tambasagro, Sanjay Ka, Dan Sanjay Shilupi Tambasana, Sanjay Ka, Dan Shilupi Tambasana, Givaro, Giva. Dene. Shilupi Tambasana, Shilupi Mani book your book.
Less so.
Less so. Hindu Mani book, Dama Yuare. And the issue in Bible book, Bible book, the issue of long chocos in the Marbe. And the Bible book, the issue of Lakan, church and what in Yalajin, to be temple send remedy. But the send out.
Then the Shilupa, Pong, the Nyampa, Nyamsulan, Gangin San, Jutsangare, the Nampa, Deep Dagadu. The Shilopa Dipasadu.
The Drapasan Tandino, I said the Shilopa Joge, Raja Taji Ron to be dark and Marva, Ramon Druba is Ramon Druba in, Deva Druba in Lord Marva, Deva Druba is, Tabai, Nade, Tabai, Jibai, Ron Da is Marva, Cyprus at Marva. Singular.
Less so.
The Chaka Jure, Kondu Jure, Tamu Jure, Namba Jenamara. That Nambagi, Chuna Demamaduaris, Nade, now in the Pompul, Tazamatu, Tabalamatu, Maduare, then the image allowing them. Then they learn Marva. And Numota later to learn what the Kakare do.
Selbodu. Decent. The difference, so we have now a quote from Praise and Honor, Shilokachi. Praise and honor of one worthy of honor. It says, the difference between your words, O hero, and the words of others is that the former should be adopted and the latter rejected. The former purifies and the latter defiles. So here, this is speaking to the difference between your words, O hero, so the pronouncements. So when we look at the scriptural turning of the wheel of religion in relative to Christianity, we would say that that would be the Bible, Bible would be an example of what so it says, your words, O hero, and the words of others. So the words of Buddha, and then the words of others. So just to give that one, that was only used as an example of what the words here are referring to, that scriptural turning of the wheel, and for a Buddhist and a non-Buddhist. And then it says, the former should be adopted, the latter rejected. The former purifies, the latter defiles. So in the Buddhist, in Buddhism, there is a statement of the I is not truly established because it is dependently originates. There's no intrinsic nature there. It is merely a name that's placed on a collection that comes together, serves as a basis of designation, and then is named as this or that. There is no independent, singular, permanent I that's separate from that. There's no I that's separate from this name, this imputation, that's put on this collection. Whereas and it's the grasping at things as being truly established, as having some kind of true establishment, singularity, or permanence that causes, is a mistaken view and causes suffering. Now here it says the former purifies. So the Buddha teaches the lack of true establishment, which can purify all defilements, because the grasping at true establishment is that which gives rise to all negativities. It says the latter defiles. Because there is Atman, there is a belief that the I, or Atman, has a permanent, singular, truly established basis from its own side. It defiles because it's not correct view and it's grasping at true establishment.
다 고시지 찾아봐 있는 제지다 가드 두고로 젠 마트바랑 이슬라고 해서다 이슈바 제지 가드 젠 뜨바메바랑 이슬고 해서다 이슈바 고시스
Less so. So the Jesus tang God wrong or not wrong?
God wrong to jela matu wrong to bare God ne su kanderis.
Oh, okay, so the Jesus in speaking of God, they speak of this independence I that exists, or a soul, or an independent I that exists separately. So there's this assertion that a Jesus has this independent self or I.
So
are we saying that Jesus is independent from his collection of 5 aggregates?
So
then when we start to make this question, we look at these aggregates and we say, is our head the I? Is our hand the eye? Is our legs the eye? Is our shape the eye? Is our color the eye? So we start to try to find out where this I is when we start to analyze our bodies and so forth. So when we look at a mirror, a reflection comes back and we see the picture of ourselves.
Pege bijet pege zonye malon maro shegu mare saju domba de maro malon domba ni la tune den drapo ji zonye ji do.
So the mirror is not the face, the reflection is not the face, but based on the dependent origination of the face reflecting in the mirror, we see the face in the mirror.
But then aji ngazu phumbu ngala tune ngawo nya blo jegma ngawo nya ba
So in dependence upon these aggregates, we establish that there's this I.
나한테 보면 가도 말어.
But the I is not the five aggregates.
나오냐 불러대 말어.
Anderson.
나오냐 불러대 말어.
Look.
consciousness.
Oh, I am not my consciousness.
불러대 말에 보면 가대 말 되니를 뛰네 나서기도 어디하고 말이야. 존이다 그렇지.
So I am not my aggregates, I am not my mind, then we see, then what is it? We find this similar to a reflection in a mirror. The eye is like a reflection in the mirror. So then we find that it comes together through the correct collection of the aggregates and the mind, and then is established on this basis of designation. But there is not something that is independent from this process. There's not some independent I that's separate from the that's designated on this interdependent relationship.
Translated.
So when we find that things come together as a collection, but have no independence separate from that collection, then we start to understand what the Heart Sutra is speaking of when it says there's no eye, no ear, no nose. So if we meditate upon emptiness, then we are able to purify a lot of misdeeds. And it says here, the former purifies. So in this line, the former purifies.
The
Buddha has stated that with the power of meditation on emptiness, that even any among the five heinous crimes can be purified. So there is no misdeed that cannot be purified by meditation upon a correct view or emptiness. So this shows that Buddha stated this in showing the power of this understanding.
Sanjig temba da ane sherubi temba ke chaba kariyo arsana ane karsugre sanjig temba le jogu gore sanjig temba le tujung shera sanjung shera gonjung shera lono chen jogu gore sherubi temba le joju ma tel jogu gore jusen karsana kala jusen karsana kala tans sherubi temba tukalo nyomo bishures and Sanjik Deba Najong Shures. Najong Deba Imbeji, Kuni Yamushu Deba Imbeji. Then he saw, then he bought church got down, Yanji Sik Chabaros. Bought church got there, Najong Chure, Shuribi, Demba there, and the Yamubi Shures. Then he ordered Sanjik got down, Shuribi Dembi Chabateres.
Shiloka Kagi.
Okay. That you send there is a good in your moon. Sanjik Damba de Sherubi Damba de Yamungu Shure, Sanjik got there, Najangshu, image Gawai machine. Then you bow choka down, did but the center, bow Shaja to be cut down, Jen Sherubi sick, Chabatu, Tichan Jaguars, but the same.
So the difference between your words, O hero, and the words of others is, so here, the words of the Lord Buddha bring about the wisdom arisen from hearing, the wisdom arisen from contemplation, the wisdom arisen from meditation, whereas the words of the others do not. The former should be adopted, the latter rejected. So the former is to be adopted, the words of Lord Buddha, the latter rejected because there are still afflicted views within those teachings, and therefore the former purifies and the latter defiles. So the former purifies misdeeds, the latter creates more.
다 쇼르비 템바다 상지 간인들 제바 요하르스 상지 가데 지도 템바레스 지 타지도 템바 덴지 송바다 덴지 요하레 덴지 송바다 덴지 요하레 돈이 송바다 돈이 요하레 지도 템바레스 안에 쇼르비 세도 어때 템바 말레스 덴지 송송 덴지 데 차네 상지 가도 초레 쇼르비 초 말레스 나고 말레.
The former is strictly reality. The latter only misleading teachings. What other differences do you need between your words and those of others? So we can assert through analysis that the Four Noble Truths are accurate, that the two truths are accurate, that emptiness is accurate. So it says the former is strictly reality, is strictly truth. And the latter is misleading. What other reason does one need? So it says, what other difference do you need between your words and those of others?
상지가 템바 이나 그와 임찹 지도 바추 제라 나사 ane shiribi tenpa tang otu su konglo tachid gawa yimi macho menpa.
Yimi macho.
Chidu bachwe jela nasa tachid gawa yimi chako mare bachwe jela sa. Dadu ma rubala dadu ruban zing, taji rawa chanchi dadu ruban zing, dama ruban zing ba yin song zang taba tubal batu chokro da. Taba tubal bachwe re. Nami tenpa de taba tubala
The former is purely virtuous. The latter only creates obstacles. What greater difference could there be between your words and those of others? So the former is completely virtuous. If it is Buddha's speech, it is virtue. It is necessarily virtue. The latter creates obstacles to liberation, because it is the belief, the grasping at the I as being permanent, singular, and truly established that keeps one from liberation. So misleading teachings that teach this truly established, self-sufficient I create obstacles to liberation. So these obstacles here, only creating obstacles, are referring to those obstacles to freedom, those obstacles to liberation, because the negation of the truly established I is not there. There is an assertion of a truly established, permanent, singular I.
다 shiribi juyendu su ngalo nga su lu guyung resi tene. Nga su lu dadu ma rubala dadu ruba tawa tanga. Anen 여자동 시르비 중간 갈래 맞는 거 그랬어. 잡아 요사질 돌로잖아. 어딜 나버 차다 그러고 된다 그랬어. 너 아주 사지 때만 내가 지기나 어디 잡았다는 그랬어. 대소서 보고 저가 다 이제 그게 줘버렸어.
Less so. The former purifies, the latter defiles and stains. This is the difference, or protector, between your words and the words of others. So the Buddha Dharma purifies the negativities, whereas the other defiles and stains. And Rinpoche made the comparison of dirtying a cloth or his robe, of putting it down, like staining, making a stain to the practice. So this is the difference, O protector, between your words and those of others. Okay, so we'll end there. Maybe perhaps some folks have questions. Any questions?
다시를 줘요 말.
Give me a page number 2.
On page 186, continued from 185, it says, the more you practice these things, the more accustomed your mind will become to them, and it will be easier to practice initially what you found difficult to learn. You will develop the spirit of enlightenment, thinking, I too should obtain Buddhahood, like the Buddha whom I recollect. You will have visions of the Buddha day and night. My question is about that part. You will have visions of the Buddha day and night. It's 138 in
Ja dan sunchusa je, dan ja dan sunchusa go. Tama. The dakpar sanje tongure, the Pemba.
Is that saying you should visualize the Buddha day and night? Or is that like from the Buddha's enlightened activities that the visions will appear to you?
Nitsen Gundu Sanje, the Nitsen Gundu Yet Chuzugu. Nitsen Gundu Sanje Zonwa Jorwa Dang. She would say do. Yeah. Yan Sanjay Jesu Jemba. Le Minyampar Durwa. They
Sanjay Jesu Jemba, Chui Jesu Jemba,
lesson.
Jagina. And then you send good to Sanjay Tonga Yungres.
The Kongi Chua. The Dondagare. Not the Nyone, Tona, the Jetsun, the Tome Dang, the Jetsun Chamba. The Nyone Tona, the Natsu Gonja Tona, Gare Kongi Chua. So, in one's meditations, one will have more vivid meditation, and then also actual. Because I followed the question up, and I said, "Is this in the way that Lord Asanga saw Maitreya, the actual Buddha in front of him or her as a practitioner?" Or visions as far as meditation. And Rinpoche said both. Obviously, in a progressive way, from a practitioner's standpoint, but both.
So in the beginning, you are visualizing, and then by the end, they're appearing to you?
Then going through the tambo, ngatsu gonja, then dache, then dunje, then the ha sanladana, then the gemma, the dunje, nyune, yongurebe. Yes. So initially you meditate on the front and self-generation forms of the Buddha, and then as your practice progresses, the actual manifestation of the Buddha will come in front of you. So it says that we don't, then if we have this very solid in our minds, at the time of death, we won't have any issue or any fear. We won't have any problem if we have this solid recollection of the Buddha, this constant recollection of the Buddha. At the time of death, we will recollect the Buddha and won't have any fear or problem. It's a very important section.
Yeah, that's it.
Time's up. So do the concluding mandala offering, dedication prayers, and so forth. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And these are all in English. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure land. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drakpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche, Gutsi Shapi Den.